Welcome to the US Kiss Vinyl Reference YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and also follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Hello again, and welcome to another installment of the US Kiss Vinyl Reference. So I'm not introducing myself today, so this introduction won't be quite as long as the last one, but today we are going to be talking about that guy, Hotter Than Hell. So second Kiss record, recorded out in LA, so it's got a different vibe than the first album, and let's dig into all these variations that we can find. All right, folks, so here we are talking about the second Kiss album, Hotter Than Hell. This was released in October of 1974, not long after the first album, but anyway, it's got a different sound, a different vibe, kind of, and they're starting to kind of dig into previous catalogs for songs, and quite a few variations of this one from the U.S., and there is a single to talk about here at the end, so let's just go ahead and get started. And as with all episodes, we're going to start off with the U.S. promo. So let me get this one opened up here real quick. All right, so for Hotter Than Hell, the U.S. promo, you'll have a mark on the jacket and label. As I touched on in the previous episodes, in order for it to be a promotional copy, you need to have some kind of mark on the jacket and or the label. So if it's got a promo label, mostly it'll have either a saw mark, a cut corner, a BB hole, something along those lines. And if it doesn't have a promo label, then to me, from a collector's perspective, it can't have just a saw mark, a cut corner, or BB hole on the jacket and be a promo. So for me, if it doesn't have a promotional label, it needs to have a gold stamp on the jacket. So that's how I look at it. Other folks may vary, but it just so happens on Hotter Than Hell, we have a promo label, which I'll show you in a minute. And then we also have just that little cut corner right there. So there's your promotional mark on the jacket. They clip that, the distributor clipped that off just so they know not to give credit for it if it gets returned. Also, the promo comes with a plain white inner sleeve. I've seen them with or without that little hole there for the label. And now let's get on to the vinyl. The vinyl will be on a blue label with that doesn't mention Warner Brothers, and it doesn't have a sunset address. So if we go by what we talked about on the last episode, that would be a blue label 2. So a blue label number 1 has a Warner Brothers mention. That was from early 74 to like August of 74. Okay. And then the blue label 2, there is no mention of Warner Brothers at all. And that ran from August of 74 to about December of 75, January of 76. And then the blue label number 3 has a Sunset Boulevard address. That ran from, late 75, early 76 to about May of 76. So, hush, little one. Old butthole cat's trying to talk to you all too. So, the label here, I'll just flip it up because I'm going to drop an image in, but there you can see it says It's hard to tell, but right there in Mr. Bogart's jacket, it says promotion, and then on the other side of the label, it says not for sale. So there's your promotional label for Hotter Than Hell. So these early promos tend to be very pricey. We'll just say up to like Rock and Roll Over, they tend to get pretty pricey. The good thing about these earlier promos, like Hotter Than Hell, Dress to Kill, Alive, and Destroyer, being on that blue label, sometimes that promotional text can get hidden. So, you know, you might be able to come across an auction where, you know, it's not listed as a promo, but there it is, and nobody caught that it's a promo yet, and you can score one fairly cheap. But if you come across one that's advertised as a promo, it is obviously going to cost you quite a bit more. So something to be on the lookout for there. So now we're going into the retail copies. And we're staying with the Blue Label 2 for now. And so to start off, we have a Blue Label 2 with black text. Then you'll notice there's not a Kiss logo on there. So that'll come to play here in a few minutes. And another thing you may notice on the earlier issues of Hotter Than Hell, the ink around the edge and, you know, this background right here, it's kind of a shiny silver. So that's something to keep an eye out for too. There's not really much variation to the jacket as we go through these. I'll point out variations where they pop up, but for right now, it looks to be in this period that the jackets are pretty well interchangeable. So we're going on to the next variation. This one happens to have that Image is Getting Clear inner sleeve. And then on the album, the vinyl, whatever you want to call it. So we have a blue label with silver text. And then notice that the title and the logo is above the spindle hole. And you have Roman numerals for sides. And notice that the tracks are center justified, meaning that they don't line up to the left and they don't line up to the right. They look kind of scattered. So there's one of the several variations of Hotter Than Hell. And the fun thing about variations is most of the time you can find them cheap. There are some variations that are a bit harder to find than others that seem to command a higher price, but for the most part, sorry for being out of frame here, for the most part, they're fairly cheap. So moving on to the next one, we have another Blue Label 2. And all these they were printed in different plants or pressed in different plants. That's why you have so many variations. So this one is also with silver text. And it also has the title and the logo above the spindle hole. Notice you have actual numbers, so side 1 and 2 instead of Roman numerals. And then also notice that the tracks line up along the left-hand side of the label. So that's left justified. And I go back and forth on whether I store my records inside the jacket or outside the jacket. To me, it really doesn't matter as long as you store them right. So your ring wear and stuff, that comes from friction. So if you've got them, sitting like this on a shelf and you've got them packed in real tight and you don't have a sleeve on there, a resealable sleeve or just a plastic sleeve in general, pulling them in and out, that causes friction. That's going to create ring wear on your jacket. So I keep all mine in sleeves, resealable for me because I've got pets and I don't want hair getting in there. And then also, if you notice my record rack here, everything's front facing. So I haven't had ring wear pop up new on any LP of mine. So you can do it either way, inside or outside the jacket. I'm going to pause this real quick. All right, quick pause. Sorry about that, even though you don't notice any difference. Had to go let my cat outside because he kept bugging me. All right, we're still back on Hotter Than Hell on the blue labels. This is still a blue label number 2. Get this guy opened up here. And this one, I keep talking about the sleeve either being solid or with a hole. I finally remembered to pull out a solid sleeve to show you. And then let's grab the record out of there and get the sleeve back in. There we go. So, as I said, this one is a blue label 2 as well. This one has the title and the logo below the spindle hole. So that matches the promotional copy. So 9 times out of 10, if you can find a variation of a promotional label, you can find a stock copy that matches it. So not all the time, but most of the time. So, and these blue label number 2s, these, all of them are considered first issue because there's no way to tell which one of those was pressed first. There's just no way. So even though the inner sleeve in one of them kind of came from a different period, so you could probably put that one back into a different time period, but they're all considered first issues because that's the first label that they were printed on. So, all right, moving on now. We are going to blue label number 3s. So an early to mid 1976 reissue. And we're going to show you the inner sleeve here again. Notice that's a kind of familiar image there that'll show up on labels here in a little bit. And then on the back, you've got an ad for some other Casablanca releases, Kiss included. And we're still pretty shiny on the jacket, the silver ink. So that hasn't fully changed over yet. But in my opinion, this is the toughest blue label number 3 to come across. And it has black text on it. And notice it's got a logo this time. You just don't see too many of Hotter Than Hell like this for some strange reason. I don't know why. Maybe there's just a small order placed at a pressing plant in that region. Who knows? From this point, 40 some odd years later, there's just no way to know why certain labels are rarer than others. But this one seems to be the hardest to find. So blue label number 3 with black text. And then we'll get another blue label 3 out. This one has silver text. And putting it up there, it's got the title and the logo above the spindle hole. And really, that's all the information you need on this Blue Label 3 variation, because there ain't as many as the Blue Label 2. I always try to find good jackets to put my stuff in. I guess I still need to replace this one because somebody wrote that it's $1. But there's always upgrades. And then another Blue Label number 3. And this time it has the logo and the title below the spindle hole. So it kind of matches up to the promo a little bit, other than the text down at the bottom. So there's a couple of variations for you to be on the lookout for if collecting variations is your thing. I started off not wanting to do that, and well, we see how that went, don't we? My phone's buzzing, so I'll be right back. Back again. Sorry for the interruptions, but thankfully you don't see what's paused, so nothing important. All right, so now we are changing labels again, and we'll go ahead and pull this out. I showed you that inner sleeve earlier that had that design on it. Now the inner sleeve has that design on both sides instead of advertising records on the back. And then get that down in there. The label matches the inner sleeve. So if you remember from the last episode, there's a fortress there, a couple of camels, and that's it. So we call this a camel label. Notice also above that it just says Casablanca, so that will come into play here in a little bit. So this variation, you got the title and the logo above the spindle hole, and it's side 1 and 2. Okay, so that'll come into play here in a second. And as a general rule with me and others, the least amount that you could use to describe a variation, usually the better off you are. Sorry about that. As you start, if you describe a variation with a paragraph, well, you're either going to confuse the hell out of somebody or you're just going to kind of lose them. So, on my little tags here, you might notice when I pull the jacket out, I've got tags here. So this describes the label variation, even though I've got scans of the labels also here. And, that one right there, that's just my own catalog number. But as a description, notice it just says Camel label 1, title logo above, sides 1 and 2. That's all I have. And then I put the runouts on there just for my own curiosity. So, but yeah, that's all I use to describe these labels, as little as possible. All right, so we got another Camel label coming for you. And this one also has the title and the logo above the hole, but it has Roman numerals instead of sides 1 and 2. So it'll be side I and side II. And, you know, the text layout is a little different. The logo is a little different. I mean, there's other variations, but really all you need to hit on this one is the fact that it's got Roman numerals for sides instead of numbers. So in some ways I'm very minimalist, and then in other ways I'm just extremely whatever the opposite of minimalist is. I'm sorry, I'm not an English major. All right. Next up, we got another Camel label. And this one has the title and the logo below the spindle hole. And that's really all you need on that one, because there's no two different variations with the title and logo below on a Camel label. So as little as possible. And this Camel label period lasted from April, May of 1976 to about April or May of, I think May of 77. So not too short of a period, but short enough. And now we are changing labels. I'm going to go ahead and readjust my order a little bit. So now the jacket starts being just a flat gray around here instead of kind of a metallic-y silver. And the inner sleeve has changed. You got now, notice it says Casablanca Record and Filmworks. And then, you know, yeah, the Fortress is bigger. You still got Camels, but you got a film crew out in front now. So we call this a Filmworks label number 1. Filmworks label number 1 is the official term for this label. This ran from about May of 1977 up to 1981-ish. So, but this particular variation has the title and the logo above the spindle hole, and it's got Roman numerals on it. All right. And by this time, there were records everywhere being pressed. So usually on these older titles, the Filmworks label is a real common variation to find. You know, from everything from the debut up to when the Filmworks label was considered a first issue, like Love Gun and Alive too. So next up, we got another Filmworks label variation. And this one has the title and the logo below the spindle hole. And that's really all you need there. And also comes with that same Filmworks inner sleeve that I showed you. And then we've got a third Filmworks variation that comes from a slightly different time period. So the back of the jacket on this one, if you look up here by the fingers, you can see that there's a little black 501 in the corner. And then it has just a regular Filmworks label 1 with the Sunset Boulevard address. That uses the print and plant numbers on the jacket, which is what that 501 is. They started around 1979, and then they would run throughout the whole Polygram era of the band's catalog. This is just a regular Filmworks label number 1, and it has the title and the logo above the spindle hole, but it's, instead of Roman numerals, it's sides 1 and 2. So yeah, this you could put this one down between 79 and 79 and 81, about the time frame that this would have been around. The plant numbers here didn't start until around 79 or so, and then the Filmworks label itself ran from 77 to 81. So with the Sunset Boulevard address at the bottom, we'll talk about that change here in a little bit. All right, so that takes care of the Filmworks labels, and now we're going to hit on some record clubs. So this would be your Columbia House, CRC, however you remember it. I did touch on them in the last episode, and one thing I forgot to really touch on was record clubs. You got different ways the jacket was marked, but there's really no science to it. You can find record club copies that have either a blue label 3, a Camel label, or a Filmworks label, and it doesn't correlate. Well, the jacket with the printed CRC has to have this label, and the jacket with the sticker has to have this label. That does not correlate at all. So this one happens to have the CRC printed in the lower right corner of the back of the jacket, and it just so happens to have a Filmworks label in it. So I mean, if somebody wanted to try to collect every jacket with every label variation, they absolutely could, but for the purposes of this, for the record clubs, I mean, from my perspective, I just worry about the different ways it was marked on the jacket, because these labels, for the most part, are not marked as a CRC label. So there's really no incentive for me to get, a printed CRC with a blue label 3 and then another with a Camel, and there's just no incentive for me to do that. So, and then our next CRC has a CRC sticker on the back of the jacket. And I mean, these are basically just retail copies. Most of them come from Columbia. This one looks like it comes from the Pittman, New Jersey plant. So yeah, I mean, Columbia just grabbed records that they were pressing anyway, slapped a sticker on it, and sold it through their club. So, and then Filmworks label as well. And that is my record clubs for Hotter Than Hell. It was just marked 2 different ways on the jacket was all. And then moving on to the Polygram era, We've got the 1983-1984 Filmworks 2 reissue. And we touched on this on the last one. We know about the one with the printed barcodes, this one right here. But there was a series right before that. It could have a barcode sticker on the jacket somewhere, or it could just have a plant number, a printing plant number for the jacket. And then it has to have a Filmworks label with a Polygram address at the bottom, and most likely a plant number, which we'll talk about that here in a second. For Hotter Than Hell, the printing plant number, you can see up there in the fingers, there's a little white 501 there. And then on the label itself, once I pull it out here, notice that it says manufactured and marketed by Polygram Records Incorporated, 810 7th Avenue, New York, New York, 10019. And then right before the word manufactured, you'll notice a little 53. That is your pressing plant number. That is where the record was pressed at. So for this Filmworks 2 series, which runs from the debut to Creatures of the Night, except for the Elder and of course the originals ain't part of it, you have to have either a printing plant number and or a UPC sticker on the back of the jacket, and you have to have a Polygram Filmworks label, with the Polygram address at the side, at the bottom. That's what makes this 83-84 Filmworks 2 series a series. So without one of those two parts, it's not a Filmworks 2. So that's why we don't have an Elder, because even though the Elder does have a couple of different jackets that have printing plant numbers on the back, there's not a U.S. Elder that's been shown so far with a Filmworks label. So it's a good series to get. It's hard to find a lot of them. So, not many of us have a full series, but some of us do. And it took me a solid 2 years to find. So if you can come across them, they're worth picking up. All right, still in the Polygram era. These are the printed barcodes on the jacket. These are a bit easier to find than the Filmworks 2 series, but they can be a little tricky to find, some of them. And then here we go with the label. It's got the same Polygram information at the bottom. You'll notice this one has a Polygram catalog number on the right-hand side of the label. So, and then this one has some information about being pressed at True Tone in the matrix. So that kind of gives a little more information to this Filmworks 3 pressing, as we call it. The label doesn't really change too much. I mean, yeah, some of them might be a little more washed out than others, but I've seen them come pretty vibrant too. This particular one, you have the 83-84 Filmworks 2 label has a NBLP number. I've seen a lot of copies of this jacket come with that same label. So if you find this jacket and your label has an NBLP number instead of that long Polygram number, it's not necessarily incorrect. So it came both ways. So that's something to think about there. I just have one copy. I never really sought out the other one. with the NBLP number because I've got the NBLP number with my Filmworks 2 jacket. So there's the Polygram era. And like I said, that Filmworks 3 with the printed barcode, that's not a sticker, that's printed on there. It's a little easier to find than the 83, 84 Filmworks 2 series, but some of them can be a little tricky. So then we have no more reissues up until 2014 with the Kisteria set. And as I touched on the last one, the Kisteria set had 6 exclusives, and then the rest of them were available either with the set or on their own. This is one of them that's available on its own. They brought back the silver text on the silver printing on the jacket. And then they also brought back the blue label. Let's pull this out here. And it's noticeably different from the old blue labels. You notice the Mercury logo at the bottom, so there's really no confusing it with a vintage blue label. And then also another thing to keep it from being confused is there's a barcode on the back. So, but that's the reissue there from 2014 in the Kisteria set. And the 2014s kind of go in and out of print, so at times it's hard to find and at times it's easy to find. So, and then the last reissue we have for the US Hotter Than Hell came from Kiss Online back in 2019. And it's got that same blue label reissue, except it's on orange colored vinyl. And a very, very translucent orange colored vinyl. So that's other than that, there's no difference in between this and the label on this one and the label that came with the 2014 reissue. There's no difference. And the jacket, there is no difference, except on the shrink wrap, there was a sticker that covered the barcode that was printed on the jacket, and it says limited edition on it. I don't keep shrink wrap, so I popped that sticker off of the shrink wrap and stuck it to the jacket where it was on the shrink wrap. So yep, colored vinyl reissue, which at this point I think they've got they've pretty much done a colored vinyl reissue for everything in the makeup era. And now we are on to 45s, and I don't have a lot because there wasn't a lot. So they issued a single from the record, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, Hotter Than Hell. And I'll show you the promo here. So here's your promo. There's your mono side. You got Let Me Go Rock and Roll. There's your stereo side. Also Let Me Go Rock and Roll. And notice it's on a blue label. And unfortunately, I do not have a blue label of the stock copy to show you. And really, hardly anybody else has a blue label of the stock copy to show you with Hotter Than Hell on the backside. There just was not many made for some damn reason. And there is a royalty payout report that Julian Gill had posted on KissFac a few years ago. It shows royalties being paid out for 125 copies. Now, does that mean that only 125 were made? No, not necessarily, but we can't find near what that would be, because I only know of three private collectors that have a copy, and then there is a copy of it sitting in the display case over at the Kiss Museum in Vegas, and it's broken. So, I mean, am I saying that only 4 copies exist? Absolutely not. I'm sure that there's copies floating around out there. I mean, we've all been to flea markets where they have boxes and boxes of 45s just thrown in there. Well, how many of us actually sit there and go through each one? So, we could have a few of them sitting in those boxes, but the point I'm making is you don't find that blue label copy. And, I've got an image of it here. Not a great image, but an image nonetheless. So there's your blue label first issue of Let Me Go Rock and Roll, Hotter Than Hell. And, that's just to show that it does exist. And then we have a Filmworks label reissue. There's the Let Me Go side. There's the Hotter Than Hell side. And I mean, this is not exactly easy to find, but it's a lot easier than the blue label. And same for the promo. It's not exactly easy to find either. But it's a lot easier than the blue label. And then we'll talk about a new label style here, which I don't have. So I'm just going to be throwing the image up on the screen and talking. Notice on this one, there is off on the left-hand side of the label, there is a number 72. That is a press and plant number. Shows you where the 45 was pressed. So with this being a Filmworks Label 1, it has no pressing plant number on it, and it has a Sunset Boulevard address at the bottom. And then this one, having a 72 on it, a pressing plant number, also with a Sunset Boulevard address. That narrows that time frame down because the plant numbers didn't come until about 79. And Dynasty was the first Kiss album that you see with pressing plant numbers. So 79, it still has the Casablanca address. So the Elder was the first Kiss album that had the Polygram address at the bottom. So there's your window, 79 to 81. And that's where this label falls in. It's rare as shit, and I don't have a copy of it yet. So yeah, this one, Let Me Go and Hotter Than Hell, for some reason, just didn't get pressed a whole lot of. And yeah, I'm missing a couple copies of it along with a bunch of other people, especially on that blue label. There's a bunch of people missing a copy. So that's a tough one to find. So that does Hotter Than Hell, and I appreciate you sticking with me on this one. It didn't quite last as long as the other one, but I rolled through them pretty quick now that I know how to lay out my format. So thank you for sticking around, and we'll catch you on the next one.